Well, hello, this is Cynthia, and I have Kim and Valencia. Great to have you guys. We're all here together and
Yes.
kind of going through this amazing book called Waking Up Gray. We will have other times about being with revived and restored building community, but I believe that this book is very helpful in bringing us in building that community. I've never been in a group with women or in a Bible study where I felt more engaged and more intimate with one another, where we really know each other.
Open hearts.
Yeah, open
Yeah.
heart. I just love it. It's been so powerful of the way this is laid out for us to go deep in Jesus and deep with one another. And if we're all teachable in it. And I think that being teachable is a very big key,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And staying in it even when it feels uncomfortable.
Yeah. Chapter 4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So here we are, and we've talked quite a bit about y'all. I wasn't here last time, but I'm so grateful y'all carry it through, and which we do every week because we're all participating in that, right? And the trust, I think that gets built, is like the iron sharpening iron, right? So yeah, so now I think I don't know if where you all ended last week. If you want to share a little bit more about the imposter syndrome that we've talked a little bit about.
Well, and it's even more than just the imposter. It's moving into the areas that are gray in our lives and trying to figure out what they are. One of the others subjects was emotions, anger, so just recognizing that the Lord can take us to those gray areas to shine his light on them,
right?
So that we can wake up from them, take off those old grave clothes.
It's kind of like where we're not, when we start recognizing and realizing our thoughts and our processes that are going in our head, that's why I think the Lord told us in his word to take every thought captive.
Yeah, absolutely.
Unto the obedience. That really mean taking every thought captive, and there was a season when I was going through all that where the Lord was showing me, because I had so many horrible thoughts going through my head a lot, and I always felt everybody was against me, and no one was for me, that no matter what I said or did, and I always believed people were thinking the worst of me, and words triggered me a lot, the way things were said, and they weren't what they meant. It was what I was perceiving that they meant because of my grit and my experiences in life, right? From a very young child. And so the Lord was showing me how to take those thoughts captive. So what I would do is, he told me, put it out, put my hand out in front of me. And he said, I want you to visualize those words, what you're thinking, and put it in your hand. And so, and there's a time when I actually wrote things out, and I
put the paper.
And so, and you put it here. And he said, I want you to ask me, the Lord said, ask me if this is from me. And I said, Lord, is this what you're telling me? Is this coming from you? And he said, if I tell you yes, then you lift it up and you worship me and you say, let it be. But if I tell you no, I want you to turn it upside down, put it on the ground, and stomp on it. It's not truth. Destroy it.
Yeah.
Physical picture. I love
it was so powerful for me. And I began to do that. I was, and I would visualize myself, even when I would be somewhere with people. Okay, Lord, I went to a women's conference retreat one time, and I was totally freaking out. I did not want to go in the room with the women. I felt so intimidated.
Oh, wow.
So isolated and alone. And I was like, they don't, like, I'm a nobody. I'm dead better. And the Lord said, and so I started lifting that up. And then he said, I want you to go in that room, and I'm going to show you something. And so I went in there, and that's when I saw the pearls. Remember, I've told the story of the pearls, and that's when I saw the pearls that he had. He said that there's a facet of me in every person there. And if you don't go in there and get to know them, you'll never know the fullness of who I am.
Ooh, I love that.
Isn't that powerful?
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where I was learning to listen to him more and more. And, it was a battle. I'm not saying it was easy, but he was giving me tools and things to do to realign my thought processes. Right. And unfortunately with children, it's difficult to, like, ask the Lord to show us how to do that. But especially if you have parents who don't know the Lord fully, right?
Yes.
Or if there's a strong religious spirit and you just pour scriptures at them, right?
So the verse that comes from is 2 Corinthians or chapter 10,
Mhm.
verse 5,
That's
we
great.
destroy arguments
Mhm.
and every lofty opinion
Yes.
raised
good.
against the knowledge of God, and take every thought captive to obey Christ.
And that's 1 Corinthians
10:5.
That's so powerful.
No, 2 Corinthians.
2 Corinthians.
Yeah.
Okay. So powerful.
Yeah.
So
I love
your fight,
Yeah.
your battle.
I know. It's
Yeah,
like-
I love it. It destroyed those
And
arguments.
it's really fun following Jesus. It really is.
Yeah,
It's really great. And the things that he teaches you and just how he instructs us and reminds us of things, it's really,
Mhm.
it's
Mhm.
really just an awesome experience when you really get to know him for who he
Mhm.
really is,
Mhm.
So I thought we would kind of kind of move forward into like the self-care and stuff too,
Mhm.
and
Right.
loving ourselves and how difficult sometimes that is for us. And yet it's the second, Jesus said to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind. And the second command is to love others as you love yourself. And so do we truly love others when we don't, with the capacity that we love ourselves, that's the capacity we have to love others, right?
Yes.
Mhm.
And, and not about doing things for others,
Right.
because sometimes we hide under that
Yeah.
too, right?
Yeah.
But it's more about being with others.
Mhm.
And are we comfortable being with ourselves alone? Like, I remember people say, "Oh, I just don't like being alone." Well, I enjoy it now because I talk to Jesus,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and I know I'm never alone. There's that confidence, no matter what's going on. Like if I find myself in a bad situation or something, or going on a walk or whatever, I'm never alone.
Yeah.
I mean, he's there, and
Yeah,
I have that
always.
conversation with him. So it's that kind of a, when you start understanding how much he loves you, and then
Mhm.
that love's poured in you, and then you say, "Give me," one of the things I tell people too, that I haven't done that with this group, but I get a mirror and I say, "Look in the mirror. Can you look at it and say the things to yourself, how much you love yourself? Like,
Yeah.
you're beautiful. Can you speak at words of affirmation over yourself in looking at yourself in a mirror?"
Yeah.
Can
I'd
you
say
do
that's
that?
probably pretty uncomfortable for
Yes.
most people. I know
Yes.
that I would
Yes.
feel real weird doing that, but I mean, it's true.
I think maybe we should do that this coming week. But
That
I
would be
mean,
good.
it's really a powerful thing. Like,
Yeah.
and I remember the first time the Lord, I remember I was getting ready and he goes, "Stop." And I had to stop. He goes, "Look at you." And I went, "What?" And I'm,
What do you mean?
Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
And I could feel his smile over me,
Oh.
and I'm looking, I'm like, I don't get it, and then I started just weeping.
Mm.
It was such an emotional time for me. And, and I could, like he wanted me to look at me
Mhm.
to see what he loves
Mhm.
too. And he loves me. And he wants me to love me too.
Mhm.
Right. And not where it's arrogance or nothing like
And
that.
it's not
It's
selfish.
not that. Yeah. It's not a selfish
No,
thing.
not at all.
And so it's like that is such I think that can be a great tool to use to see where people are at, but maybe that God wants to take them a little bit deeper
Mhm.
in understanding how he values and loves us. He died for us.
Yeah.
He gave his life. I mean, that just, even if you ponder on that for a while, why? What?
And he'll go after the one.
Yes.
And leave the 99.
Yes.
Because he loves us so much.
Yes.
Yeah. So we talked a little bit about that on Wednesday also. Just kind of, we were like, okay, 1 to 10, where are you as far as your love for yourself, or how well you love yourself, I think is how we framed the question. And most of us, it was not real high. Kim was impressing everybody because but that's part of your story too. And I believe that too, because part of your story is kind of that you weren't always getting that in your other relationships, right? And so you really leaned into that space with God, which kind of, I think that's where we feel an absence of self-love, is when we haven't really fully received his love for us, right? And so I think because of your journey, you have been able to fully
cry my heart into his arms,
walk in that.
Yeah.
When people talk about, making Jesus your husband or whatever it is, what that looks like, is really different. And I think probably to the degree that we're able to receive his love, like fully, really, not just like, oh, this thing that we hear and we know this with our minds, like that you fully receive that love. I think that's what changes everything.
Yeah. And I think that's where you begin to see where you have idols, because you're not happy unless that person does this or that person does that or that person speaks this to you, whatever. But when you have the love of Jesus pouring in and flowing through you, that's not, yes, it would be okay, it would be great if they did, but if they don't, it's not going to affect who you are.
Yes.
Right.
That's on them. It's not on you.
Yeah.
Right. So because when you're, fully alive in Jesus and loving others well too, you have loved yourself. And it's out of that outflow, that overflow is where others are touched and healed too. So
yeah,
it's a powerful, it's just, I don't like asking questions like that, but I felt like the Lord told me to do that. And it was like,
thank you for being obedient.
Yeah.
Well, it's uncomfortable to ask it because it's uncomfortable for people to answer it, right? I mean, that's what it is.
Like I don't have a formula. I'm not sitting there thinking all these things I'm going to ask. Like at the spur of the moment, Lord's like, well, I want you to ask this question. I'm there going,
you mean you moved by the Holy Spirit? Yeah. I've never known that about you. I'm like, yes, that feels, that feels accurate.
Yeah.
So I do think that we probably do need to ask those kind of questions, because when you have to put a number on it, it just gets real specific, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I thought most people were kind of mid-range, and I felt like I was like, gosh, I don't even think in those terms, and I think some other people had expressed that too. And like when I had the first number that came to mind, I don't know how accurate it was or not, but man, if it was accurate, it was pretty low.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't necessarily think of myself. I'm not like a person who ponders my self-loathing. I don't feel that way about me at all. But I think it's like, oh, well, loving yourself is actually a little different than that. It isn't about like, I don't disdain myself. I mean, I'm well aware of my flaws and things like that, and places where I'm imperfect. Like I'm very aware of those things, but I don't think I beat myself up about it a whole lot, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I am loving myself well.
Yeah.
So that
there's a difference.
Just even realizing that those things are really different. I mean, it's maybe on a continuum or something, there's probably way down there is like full on self-loathing. But you don't have to be that. And you could still not really be loving yourself well. So that's kind of eye-opening for me to just hear what everyone's answers were. And to know where I was ranking in. It's like, oh, I need to work on that.
So as an artist, you've made those scales of gray, dark to white.
Right.
That's another way to think about it, is how far into the dark or how far into the light are gray.
Yeah.
We were last time moving into the gray so that we could step closer to the light.
Yeah.
It's amazing how can I say this? But some of the things that the Lord's brought me through, though, is my self-deception.
Yeah, that's true too.
And where I've thought I was okay in that, but then when He takes you deeper, it's like, oh wow, yeah, that's really there. I never would have thought myself as like a jealous person, right? I thought my family operated in that.
I saw it in them.
Mine from my extent, my siblings and my parents, whatever, like, aunts and uncles, like I saw that and like some aspect of it. And then I remember the Lord's sitting there, showing a part of me of where I was jealous. And it had to do with, we were doing a ministry, out in the projects and stuff like that. And I never felt recognized within the church that we were attending. And they were always, calling up other people or, making a big deal out of other things, and then I would even hear like, oh, you're just a children's ministry, just a children's thing, whatever. And so I'd get bumped. And then I don't say that to speak against the church, but I didn't understand what was hurting. And I said, Lord, why is that? Like, why does it pierce my heart? Because it literally felt like it was piercing my heart every time that would be done. And He said, it's because you're jealous. I go, what? No, I'm not. And he says, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, okay, so tell me, how am I jealous? And then the very thing that I said, my family, and this and this and this, he goes, well, you kind of come out of that family background too. So when you, and what he was showing me is that I wasn't, he is, if you weren't doing what you were doing right now, who would be doing it?
Mm-hmm.
I've called you to this. I didn't call you to that.
Yeah.
Why are you jealous over that?
Mm-hmm.
And it shifted my perspective, and I repented. I just started crying. I said, Lord, please forgive me. And that's what comparison and jealousy does, and because I wasn't self-loving and accepting the place where he had me and where I was, and with the children that he had me working with and the projects and stuff, he values them. He loves them so much. And that he needed me to see and accept me where I was at, that I didn't need the approval of men.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that was a big, and I didn't want to see it. I didn't want to see that jealousy was there at first, but then when he took me, I was like, oh my, that's real. I was jealous that they're getting the accolades, and I'm not, but, and so I'm grateful that he showed me that. And I had to, and then the Lord also showed me where, because of that, it was harming it in the spirit realm. It was coming against them. So I ended up having a meeting.
Oh, wow.
Went to coffee, and I asked their forgiveness. I said, I know you don't know this about me, but I've been jealous of you. And I want to bring it out in the light.
Wow.
I ask your forgiveness, because I'm sure this goes on in a lot of places.
Yeah.
Because they were in a position of leadership too.
Yeah.
And I asked their forgiveness. And we prayed, because the Lord said, yeah, bring it out to the light and cut that off. Because I said, I don't want, and I said, in the spirit realm, it really does affect you in your leadership style too, and what's happening in there. So we have to take accountability is what I feel like what he was showing me, be willing to go that place with the Lord to show really, he didn't shame me in it.
Yeah.
He didn't condemn me in that. He didn't make me feel guilty about it. It's like, let me give you a new perspective.
And in that process, he changed you to be more like him.
Yes.
I love that.
It was so beautiful. And because of that, I got, I had 2 new sisters in the Lord that I didn't really know their hearts either. And it was so beautiful. It was just a beautiful encounter with them.
Yeah. And had you not said anything, right?
Yeah.
And that's partly that's also in that space of taking thoughts captive. It's like, create some space to hear him, right? Because when our mind is running rampant, and frequently when we are not in a place where we're living ourselves real well, especially if we're deceived about that fact, we don't hear him. There's a whole lot of noise that's getting in there that we're not even like, it just becomes your background music for your life, and you're not realizing that that's what's happening. And it just, so damaging. So damaging.
And, I think too, even thinking about it now, is that if I had not gone to them, I might have questioned it. In our humanness, I still might have questioned it. And I think, because I'm like, Lord, what was the, because they didn't know, but the spirit realm knows.
Yeah. And there's freedom on the other side of that for everybody involved, for you, for them. And then you can realize, oh, actually, they're totally different than I thought. Yeah. And I probably am too.
Yes.
And God has this really special thing that he wants me to do, that it isn't about comparison, because you were there and not them too.
Right.
That was the other thing. Right. They were maybe not asking you to do other things, but they were also, the Lord was not asking them to do that special thing that he needed you to do, because you were equipped.
Yes.
And that was not their equipping, right? Yeah. It was just different.
Yeah.
And we forget that.
Yeah, that we're all one body, and we and trust that the Lord, as we're looking at him, and if it needs to shift, he'll shift it.
I love it.
Yeah. Isn't it? It's just so beautiful.
He's building us up together.
Anyway, that's just, I love, I think what part of that where he said, he's chosen us to make a dwelling place within our hearts.
For him.
Yeah. And that, when we have that as our heart motive is based on him, it changes the trajectory of where you're going, even in your life and in all your relationships.
Right.
and because of my past, I mean, I had so many things I could have, the victimhood of what I lived in prior to that, right? It was like all the abuses, everything, like, then he just compounded. It's like, but when you make him in your heart of hearts, where he brings you back to relationship with others. He never keeps you to it's just not just me and Jesus.
No.
Right. People say that a lot too.
I don't like that because he's telling me like, well, no, he's not that.
Which is great that you have the you and Jesus part, but
it's not.
Scripture is pretty clear that it's about community and the body.
He is, and when he heals your heart and you and Jesus, and I still love times where I have with I'm with Jesus, he's with me all the time. That I'm almost like, give me eyes to see what you're doing, give me eyes to see who you want. Do you have a word you want to speak? Do you have blessing, just like what happened today? And he's moving all the time. It's like, so it's never about just for me and him, and we don't do anything with there's just so much more. It's about building the kingdom, and it's just a beautiful.
Well, in the book too, Jenny Shute talks about in the self-care chapter, she's talking about being attentive to God's world. And it is, it's like, she says the capacity for delight is the gift of paying attention.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We're so busy. We don't pay attention. And that is what our capacity of delight is bearing on. I mean, wow, we just need to be attentive. We just need to be listening because, like you said, it can bring a new relationship. It can bring freedom where there was oppressive thoughts. It can bring, restoration. It does all kinds of things. And you can fill a need for somebody and be Jesus when they needed somebody to be that. And I think, I don't know. I mean, maybe it's not we. Maybe I'm saying the royal we. Maybe it's me.
No, it's we.
We don't always think
me.
about it. Even when you're a person who actually pursues the Lord or is trying in your best humanness to try to do that. And she talks too about like, what are you grateful for and what you're not grateful for? That recognizing those things too as a kind of a springboard and a litmus test of where you are, because it does kind of align where your life is and things that maybe need to be addressed, prayer or whatever needs to be done, things maybe cycles that you need to get out of, and but also things that you can have a lot of gratitude for, because there's a lot of scripture that talks about how much that changes your heart and your perspective. It changes what you do and how you are. And
gratefulness and
gratitude's huge.
Yep.
So anyway, I just love that those things are also part of caring for yourself, because it's part of being in God's world, being attentive to him and connected to him, so that you are going to make the best of every moment, because you can't do that really apart from him.
That's right. It's so good. And it's not about where you're doing self-care where it's at the expense of others. God would never have you do that. And so that's, it is where it's a very humbling yet gratifying moment to really learn how to love yourself the way that he loves us, in a sense of, it's the confidence of how he's made us and what he's called us to do. And the reassurance of that it comes from him. It's just, anyway, so good. I love that. And I was thinking about the stillness. So whenever there's areas where, I can feel like if I'm even still to this day with my husband, we've been through so much together, but if I'm getting stirred up about something, I get upset and I might get loud because get passionate. And then I have to go back and the Lord will convict me, and I have to go back and say, yeah, that was not right. The way I responded, right? But it's taking ownership over that too, and being, I think, in that place of that he has a plan is always to build us up, not to tear us down, and regardless of who, and even if someone does you wrong, and I've had to go back to others, where I felt they had done me wrong, but they didn't even
realize it.
it wasn't them. And that's another picture the Lord told me. The Lord showed me it was how I took it.
Got it.
But that was not their intention at all.
Yeah.
Because I don't know their heart.
Yeah.
He knows their heart. But when I went, and then it's like when he showed me that there a lot of things that happen, I would say majority we're unaware, is that the enemy, because he knows our grid, things will happen, and some people will just do things and say things they don't even know why or what they're doing, and it affects us because we still have that, trigger point or whatever it is in there, and the enemy knows it, right? So it's like surrendering all that to the Lord and saying, hey, I'm getting stirred up here. I don't know why, but Lord, I'm going to press into you, and I'm going to press in going to the person. I've always found the person I repel the most is usually the Lord wants me to move closer in.
Oh, that's true. That's absolutely true.
I'm like, what?
I've experienced that.
I don't want to do that. So I find that fascinating. Like, he's shown me that every time.
Yeah, it's true.
I've got some good stories on all that over the years, but and there's a difference between wisdom and, just when you're being led by fear, that's not the Lord.
Yeah.
The Lord never leads us by fear or panic or accusation, right? He never leads us in that. That's the enemy. So I'm just so grateful for going through this. I'm excited about the next chapter. Well, and we learn about self-care, but we're going to be going into something that's going to even be a little bit more deeper, and that's about moving through fear. Yeah. So that's kind of, I was segueing into that. I don't know if you noticed that, but just kind of talk a little bit about it. So, but for those who are listening, you can reach out to us at, well, right now I do have R&R building community at Gmail. So I do have that now, or you can reach me at beloved